found out that my aunt and my mom were having an affair with my fiancé and planned to get him married to me so that they could get easy access to him. So I exposed them all. I never thought I'd be sharing a story like this, but I'm still in shock and need to get it off my chest. 3 months ago, my entire world came crashing down when I uncovered a web of betrayal involving my fiancé, my aunt, and even my own mother. It's taken me this long to gather the courage to write about it, but I hope that sharing my experience might help me process what happened and maybe even help others who've gone through similar situations. Let me start from the beginning. I'm 28 years old, and until recently, I thought I had a pretty good life. I have a stable job as a marketing manager, a close-knit family, and I was engaged to a man I thought was the love of my life. How quickly things can change. My story begins with my Aunt Melanie, my mom's younger sister. Melanie has always been a big part of our family. She's a single mom with a 4-year-old son named Eric, and she lives just a few blocks away from We've always been close, and I've always looked up to her as a strong, independent woman who seemed to have it all together despite the challenges of single motherhood. About a year ago, Melanie introduced me to Martin. She said he was a friend of a friend, and she thought we might hit it off. From the moment I met Martin, I was drawn to him. He was handsome, charming, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me and my family. He worked as a successful real estate agent, and I was impressed by his ambition and the way he carried himself. Our relationship progressed quickly. Martin was attentive, romantic, and seemed to tick all the boxes of what I was looking for in a partner. He got along well with my parents, was great with Melanie's son Eric, and even my friends approved. I thought I had hit the jackpot. 6 months into our relationship, Martin proposed. It was a magical evening. He took me to a beautiful rooftop restaurant overlooking the city, got down on one knee, and presented me with a stunning diamond ring. Of course, I said yes without hesitation. I was on cloud 9, feeling like my life was falling perfectly into place. We decided to have an engagement party at my parents' house to celebrate with our family and close friends. The day of the party was beautiful, warm and sunny with a gentle breeze. My mom and Aunt Melanie had gone all out with the decorations, stringing twinkling lights in the backyard trees and setting up elegant tables with flower centerpieces. I felt like a princess in my new pale blue dress, and Martin looked dashing in his tailored suit. As we greeted our guests, I couldn't stop smiling. My dad was beaming with pride, shaking hands with everyone and bragging about his little girl finding such a great guy. Even my mom, Rebecca, seemed happy. Though looking back, I realized there were signs that something wasn't quite right. Throughout the party, I noticed my mom looking worried and distracted at times. Whenever I asked if everything was okay, she'd brush it off, saying she was just emotional about her daughter growing up so fast. I didn't think much of it at the time, talking it up to the emotional nature of the event. I also caught my mom and Aunt Melanie having hushed conversations several times during the party. They'd be huddled in a corner, speaking in low voices, but whenever I'd approach, they'd quickly change the subject or claim they were just reminiscing about old times. Again, I didn't think much of it then, but now I wish I'd paid more attention. The engagement party was a success, and in the weeks that followed, Martin and I started making plans for our future together. We talked about where we wanted to live, how many kids we might want, and all the exciting adventures we'd have as a married couple. I was so caught up in the romance of it all that I failed to notice some red flags that, in hindsight, should have been glaringly obvious. One thing that struck me as odd was Martin's behavior whenever he'd visit our house. He'd always ask about Melanie, how she was doing, if she'd been around lately, that sort of thing. At first, I thought it was sweet that he was showing interest in my family, but the frequency and intensity of his inquiries started to feel a bit strange. Still, I brushed it off, telling myself I was lucky to have a fiancé who cared about my family. Another thing I noticed was that my mom seemed to be spending more time with Aunt Melanie than usual. They'd always been close, but suddenly they were going shopping together almost every day, or having long sister lunches that would last for hours. When I'd ask about their outings, they'd give vague answers and quickly change the subject. Despite these small oddities, I was happy and excited about my future with Martin. We'd set a wedding date for the following summer and were in the midst of planning when everything fell apart. It was a Saturday, and Martin and I had plans to go shopping for some new home decor. I was excited to start picking out things for our future home together. But at the last minute he called to cancel, saying something urgent had come up at work. I was disappointed but understood that these things happen, especially in his line of work. Since my afternoon was now free, I decided to see if Aunt Melanie wanted to go shopping instead. Her house was so close that I didn't bother calling first. I figured I'd just pop over and surprise her. When I got there, the front door was locked, which was unusual. Melanie almost always left it open during the day. Not wanting to disturb her if she was napping, I remembered the spare key hidden behind a loose brick near the back door. I let myself in quietly through the kitchen, planning to surprise her. As I entered the living room, I saw little Eric fast asleep on the couch. This struck me as because Melanie was usually very attentive and rarely left him alone, even when he was napping. That's when I heard it. A man's laugh coming from down the hall, followed by Melanie's familiar giggle. My heart started racing as I recognized that laugh. It was Martin's. I told myself I had to be mistaken, that there was some explanation. Moving as quietly as I could, I made my way down the hall towards Melanie's bedroom. The door was partially open, and what I saw through that crack shattered my world. There, on the bed, were Martin and Melanie. They were kissing passionately, their hands all over each other. Couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I just stood there, frozen, as the truth of what I was seeing sank in. They were so caught up in each other that they didn't even notice me. I don't know how long I stood there, watching this nightmare unfold before my eyes. Could have been seconds or minutes. Time seemed to stand still. Finally, I managed to back away without making a sound. I left the house the same way I came in, closing the door softly behind me. Once outside, I broke into a run, tears streaming down my face as I headed home. I locked myself in my room and cried for hours, unable to process the betrayal I just witnessed. How could Martin do this to me? How could Melanie, someone I loved and trusted, betray me like this? My mind was reeling, trying to make sense of what I'd seen. When I finally collected myself enough to think clearly, I decided I needed to talk to my parents. They'd know what to do, how to handle this mess. I was about to call my mom when I got a text message from her saying she was out shopping with Aunt Melanie and would be home late. My blood ran cold. I knew that was a lie because I'd just seen Melanie with Martin. Why would my mom lie about being with her? A horrible suspicion began to form in my mind, and before I knew it, I was heading back to Melanie's house. I had to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. This time, I didn't hesitate. I went straight to the back door and let myself in. The house was quiet. Eric must have still been napping. I crept down the hallway, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure they'd hear it. As I approached Melanie's bedroom, I heard voices. Not just two, but three distinct voices. Nothing could have prepared me for what I saw when I looked into that room. There was Martin, naked on the bed, with both Melanie and my mother. They were laughing, touching each other, completely lost in their own world of betrayal and deceit. I felt like I was going to be sick. The room started spinning and I had to lean against the wall to keep from falling. Without thinking, I pulled out my phone and started recording. I don't know why. Maybe as proof to myself that this nightmare was real, or maybe because I knew no one would believe me otherwise. I sent the video to my dad right then and there, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hit send. Then, unable to stomach another second of what I was seeing, I turned and ran. This time, I slammed the door behind me as hard as I could. I wanted them to know they'd been caught, to feel even a fraction of the pain and humiliation they'd caused me. I don't remember much after that. I think I wandered the streets for hours, trying to make sense of how my life had fallen apart so completely in the span of a single day. How could the people I trusted in the world betray me like this? My fiancé, my aunt, and even my own mother. They had all been lying to me, deceiving me in the worst possible way. When I finally made it home, I found my dad sitting on the front steps, his face pale and drawn. He'd seen the video I sent, and he was just as shocked and devastated as I was. We sat there together, both of us crying, trying to comfort each other, even as our worlds crumbled around us. The next few days were a blur of confrontations, tears, and anger. Martin tried to explain, claiming it was a one-time mistake, but I knew better. My mother begged for forgiveness, saying she'd gotten caught up in something she couldn't control. Melanie tried to justify her actions, saying she had needs that weren't being met. Their excuses and explanations only made me feel more hurt and disgusted. My dad and I made the decision to cut ties with all of them. He started divorce proceedings against my mom, and I called off the engagement, throwing the ring back in Martin's face. We both blocked their numbers and social media accounts, unable to bear hearing their voices or seeing their faces. It's been 3 months since that day, and I'm still struggling to come to terms with what happened. My entire life feels like it was built on lies. The people I loved and trusted the most turned out to be the ones who hurt me the deepest. I've been going to therapy, trying to work through my anger and pain, but it's a slow process. My dad has been my rock through all of this. We're both hurting, both betrayed by the women we loved, but we're supporting each other as best we can. We've moved out of our family home, unable to bear the memories it held, and are starting fresh in a new apartment across town. I'm not sure what the future holds. The trust one had in people has been shattered, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to open my heart to someone again. But I'm trying to take it one day at a time, focusing on healing and rebuilding my life. If anyone has been through something similar or has any advice on how to move forward from this kind of betrayal, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you for letting me share my story. It helps to know I'm not alone in this struggle. Update. It's been 3 months since I last posted about the devastating betrayal I uncovered involving my ex-fiancé Martin, my Aunt Melanie, and my mother. First, I want to thank everyone who reached out with kind words, shared their own experiences, and offered advice. Your support has meant more to me than I can express during this incredibly difficult time. A lot has happened since my original post, and I wanted to update you all on where things stand now. It's been a roller coaster of emotions, but I feel like I'm slowly starting to see a light at the end of this very dark tunnel. As you might expect, my engagement to Martin is completely off. After I exposed their affair, he quickly left town, probably to avoid facing the consequences of his actions. Good riddance, I say. I hope I never see his face again. The ring he gave me? I sold it and donated the money to a charity that supports victims of domestic abuse. It felt good to turn something that represented so much pain into a force for good. My father and I have stuck together through this whole ordeal. When he received that video I sent, he was just as shocked and devastated as I was. It didn't take long for him to make the decision to divorce my mother. He's cut all contact with both her and Melanie. It hasn't been easy, but we're both slowly picking up the pieces of our lives. We've moved out of our family home and found a small apartment across town. It's been an adjustment, downsizing and starting over, but it's also been cathartic in a way. We're creating a new space that isn't tainted by the memories of betrayal. Dad has been amazing through all of this. He's dealing with his own pain, but he always makes sure to check in on me and offer support when I'm having a tough day. My mother did try to apologize and explain herself, but neither my father nor I are ready to forgive her. The betrayal runs too deep, and the trust that's been broken feels irreparable right now. She sent letters, left voicemails, and even tried to corner me at my workplace once. I've made it clear that I need space, and if she can't respect that, I'll have to take more drastic measures. Through all of this, some ugly truths have come to light. It turns out that Martin and Melanie had been in a relationship for 5 years before I even met him. 5 years. Melanie's husband had left her years ago, but she couldn't marry Martin because she would lose the child support payments for her son, Eric. So they kept their relationship a secret, playing the roles of doting aunt and charming family friend. But it gets worse. About 2 years ago, Melanie introduced my mother to Martin, and they began an affair as well. I still can't wrap my head around how my own mother could do this to me and my father. The level of deception is staggering. All those times I saw them whispering together, all the secret smiles and inside jokes. It was all part of their twisted game. The most sickening part of all is that Melanie came up with a plan to have Martin marry me. Their twisted logic was that if Martin was my husband, both Melanie and my mother would always have access to him. They could continue their affairs right under my nose, using family gatherings and casual visits as cover for their deception. They were willing to sacrifice my entire future, my chance at genuine love and happiness, just to satisfy their own selfish desires. Looking back, so many things make sense now. The hushed conversations I'd overhear between my mother and Melanie, the worried looks my mother would sometimes have, Martin's constant questions about Melanie. It was all part of their elaborate scheme. I feel so used and manipulated. These were people I trusted completely, and they were playing me for a fool. My father and I are in therapy now, both individually and together. It's helping us our emotions and start to rebuild our lives. The therapist has been great, helping us work through our anger and pain, and teaching us coping mechanisms for when things get overwhelming. It's a long road, but I feel like we're making progress. I'm focusing on my career and spending time with friends who have been incredibly supportive throughout this whole ordeal. I've thrown myself into work, taking on new projects and responsibilities. It helps to keep my mind occupied, and the sense of accomplishment I get from doing well at my job has been a much-needed boost to my self-esteem. My dad has found his own ways to cope. He's thrown himself into his work too, but he's also started taking cooking classes as a way to occupy his mind and learn a new skill. It's been good for him, giving him a creative outlet and a sense of achievement. We've started having weekly dinner nights where he tries out his new recipes on me. It's become a special bonding time for us, a bright spot in all this darkness. We're taking it one day at a time. Some days are better than others, but we're making progress. The pain and anger are still there, but they're not as raw as they were in the beginning. We're learning to live with what happened, to accept that we can't change the past, but we can control how we move forward. To those who asked in the comments of my original post, no, we haven't pressed any charges or taken legal action beyond the divorce. We just want to move on with our lives and put this whole ugly chapter behind us. The divorce proceedings are ongoing, and while they're not pleasant, we're both committed to getting through them as quickly and cleanly as possible. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I know I'm stronger for having gone through this. Trust doesn't come easily to me anymore, but I'm working on not letting this experience make me bitter or closed off to the possibility of love in the future. My therapist is helping me work through these trust issues, reminding me that not everyone is like Martin, my mother, and Melanie. It's a slow process, but I'm learning to open up again, bit by bit. One positive thing that's come out of this whole mess is that I've reconnected with some old friends who I'd lost touch with over the years. When news of what happened spread, because in a small town, news like this always spreads, several of my high school and college friends reached out. They've been incredibly supportive, offering shoulders to cry on, distractions when I need them, and reminders that I'm worthy of real, honest love. I've also started volunteering at a local animal shelter on weekends. Being around the animals has been therapeutic, and the unconditional love from the dogs and cats has been a balm for my battered heart. There's something healing about caring for creatures who need love and attention, and it's helped me feel useful and needed during a time when I felt so lost. As for Martin, Melanie, and my mother, I don't know what's become of them. Martin left town shortly after everything came to light, and I've heard rumors that he moved to another state. Melanie and my mother have both tried to contact me multiple times, but I've maintained my distance. I'm not sure if they're still in touch with each other, or if their twisted alliance fell apart when their secrets were exposed. Honestly, I try not to think about them too much. They don't deserve any more of my time or energy. My father has been on his own journey of healing. He's joined a support group for people going through divorces, and I think it's been helpful for him to connect with others who understand what he's going through. He's also rekindled his passion for photography, something he loved when he was younger but gave up when life got busy. Seeing him find joy in something again has been really heartening. To those who asked about Eric, Melanie's son, I worry about him sometimes. He's innocent in all of this, and I hope he's okay. I've thought about reaching out to check on him, but I'm not sure if that would be appropriate given the circumstances. It's a complicated situation, and I'm still trying to figure out how to navigate it. Looking ahead, I'm cautiously optimistic about the future. This experience has taught me a lot about resilience, about the importance of self-respect, and about the true meaning of family. My father and I may be a smaller family unit now, but we're stronger and more honest with each other than ever before. I'm not dating yet, and I'm not sure when I'll be ready to put myself out there again. For now, I'm focusing on healing, on rebuilding my life, and on rediscovering who I am outside of the roles of daughter, niece, and fiancé that I've lost. I'm learning to trust my instincts more, to value my own happiness, and to set boundaries where needed. To anyone else who might be going through something similar, know that you're not alone. What happened wasn't your fault, and you deserve so much better. It's okay to be angry, to be sad, to feel lost. But also know that healing is possible. Surround yourself with people who truly care about you. Seek professional help if you need it, and be patient with yourself. Healing isn't linear, and some days will be harder than others, but you will get through this. Thank you again to everyone who's been following my story and offering support. Your kindness has been a bright spot in an otherwise dark time. I'll update again if there are any significant developments, but for now, I'm focusing on moving forward one day at a time.